ready? Grant, you ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
State of Wisconsin versus Jose Silva, 22 CF 4040. Appearances.
Grant Huebner for the state.
Jose Manuel Silva appears in person in custody and with Attorney Dan Adams. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Attorney Huebner, and good afternoon to you, Attorney Adams. Good afternoon, Mr. Silva. Mr. Silva's case is before me today for a sentencing hearing. He entered a guilty plea to a charge of homicide by intoxicated user previous to this. I have received and reviewed a variety of materials, both victim impact statements, a restitution request. In addition, there were letters of support from the defendant's family, as well as a sentencing memorandum and a disc that talked about, it was basically family members talking about Mr. Silva and his good character and traits. So I've reviewed all of that information. Have you had the chance, Attorney Huebner, to go through all of that information as well?
Yes.
And Attorney Adams, have you gone through that information too?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Mr. Silva, have you had the chance to see and review those materials as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much. So then, has the state complied with the victim rights notification law, namely Marcy's Law, in this matter?
We have, Your Honor. We've notified the victim's family of today's date. As the court can see, there's a large gathering of people on behalf of the victim's family. We have provided the victim restitution form and the impact statements. I'd ask that the court find that we've complied with victim rights at this time.
The court will find that the state has made reasonable efforts and has complied with the victim rights notification law in this matter. Before we proceed forward, there was a restitution request. Is that still a request being made by the victim's family?
It is.
And it was for $806?
$806.55. That's correct.
Defense, is there going to be a stipulation to that amount of $806.55?
Yes, there's a stipulation.
And you agree with that, Mr. Silva? You agree you will repay the victim's family that amount?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right. Then, at this point in time, is the state ready to proceed with your sentencing arguments?
I am, Your Honor.
Defense, are you ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Silva, is there any reason that we should not proceed with this sentencing hearing today, sir?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Then, Attorney Huebner?
Thank you, Your Honor. Before I proceed with my arguments, there are 3 members on behalf of the victim's family that would like to speak, and I would like to have them speak first, and then I will follow up with my arguments.
Thank you. Then I'd ask you, Ms. Pischke, to escort the first person in.
That would be Jim.
Good afternoon, sir. Could you take a seat next to the district attorney? And if you would please tell me your name and spell it for the record, I'd be grateful, sir. Thank you.
I'm Pastor James Huebner. The last name is spelled Huebner.
All right. Pastor Huebner, what would you like to say?
If I may, Your Honor, I begin with a question, and that is, what is life? I think most people would respond with some definition that relates to our physical life. The heart is working, the lungs are working, the brain has its electrical functions. I submit that a definition of life is connections. This is how our God, in fact, designed it from the start. Well, he wouldn't have had to, because there really is a God, and our eternal God can exist on his own and be completely content in that, but decided, for his own reasons, to create a universe, and the crowning jewel of which would be human beings. I've always been very committed to the fact that he did that because the Bible, his book, describes that he himself is love, and he wanted a target for his love, which would be the crowning jewel, people. So life is really a connection with God, the connection he has with us in love. Sadly, the Bible record that God gives us also indicates that humans blew that apart and then did separate it from God. But God, in his wonderful mercy and compassion, came up with a plan to restore that connection. And by a miracle, actually, he sent his own son into the world to do what humans could not, live up to his standards, and to actually pay for their injustice, crookedness, and rebellion. That's exactly what Jesus did, and we Christians celebrated within a week or so ago with Holy Week and Easter, that Jesus lived his life in our place, credited to us, and made the payment for all sin, proved to be true by the resurrection. So we could now have connection with God. In his love, God also blessed human beings with the wonderful opportunity to have horizontal connections with each other, with human beings. If life is connections, which I believe it is, then death is the opposite. Death is separation. Consider, for example, a little 5-year-old child walking in a shopping mall with mom and dad. They go by a toy store. What does a 5-year-old do? Attention is at the toys, and I can't get my eyes off, but notices out of the corner of his eye that mommy and daddy are walking away. The little child is looking at the toys, glancing at mom and dad, and realizing, wait, starts trundling after. Mom, dad, wait. They pick up speed. His little legs go a little faster. They start to trot. He goes a little faster. They start to run. He tries to catch up. Around the corner of the mall they go and out the glass doors, which slam shut and lock, while he puts his little 5-year-old nose on the glass and fingers and watches as mom and dad get in a car and drive away and never, ever come back. How does that child feel? That is separation. That is what death is. God, because of his holiness, requires that humans who violate his holy standards have to be separate from him forever, an unending sense of loss worse than that little 5-year-old could ever experience. But Jesus did that on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? And that is credited as though we did it. So we can still remain vertically connected to our God, but we also now live in an imperfect world where human connections are the basis for our enjoyment of life on this earth. But when those are disrupted, it is horrible. And that is exactly what happened last October 12th, when the human life of my partner and our pastor, Pastor Strong, at Grace Lutheran Church here in Milwaukee, was killed. There was separation, not from God, because the real essence of our being and his is called our soul, our real you, the real being, the real essence of our existence, immediately was with God in heaven. We know that, and we're comforted by that, and find that to be true, to be our joy in the Easter season with the resurrected Jesus, who will also raise our lifeless bodies one day to rejoin our souls. But in the meantime, we still live in this world, which is not perfect, and we get horrible reminders of that with such a thing like illness and problems in relationships and disconnections and ultimately physical death. What that causes is a huge impact on a congregation like ours of 1,000 members. It's not just that easy to replace a pastor. This is just on the practical side of it. Honorable Judge, you know yourself that not everyone who has law background can do what you do. Not everyone who is trained, even as a Christian, to witness and proclaim the good news of Jesus in the Bible can do what a pastor does. It actually takes, from kindergarten on, 21 years of education for Pastor Strong to get to the point where he was. And not only that, but not every pastor can serve in a church like ours in downtown Milwaukee. It takes a unique gift set with personality and skills, and God blessed Pastor Strong with this joy and this passion to proclaim Jesus, and not only to members, but to make an impact in our community. The loss, the separation physically of his presence in our congregation has severely impacted our ability to connect the love that God gives to human beings and the promise of eternal life with our work in the community and certainly in our congregation. We know that there is healing, but as I have often heard from others, there is a wound. It will heal. Time heals all wounds, but there's always the scar. The scar won't go away, and we feel that at our congregation. So while we do intend to move on in ministry, we need to find replacement for our pastoral role, and then we also have to consider the impact emotionally. When there is death and separation, it's not just physical and the acts and the service and the ministry which our pastor carried out among us. It's the human connections. It's the human life that he fostered in our midst. He had moved into a discipleship pastor role, meaning he was encouraging members to live out their Christian love for others and to touch the community in that way in a small group ministry. And that had just rolled out in September of 22, a month before he was killed. So now to figure out how we're going to carry that on and make that kind of impact is where we're at as a congregation. And in addition comes our care for the family, which is our number one concern. The disconnect and the separation from their father, the kids, and husband for his wife, Abby, is a very, very difficult thing to overcome. We find comfort, as they do, in the promises of eternal life, but humanly speaking, we live in this earth, and now there is a disconnect and separation, and we have to deal with that. It's been a huge impact for all of us as we alternate between tears and hugs and move forward with God's goodness. But we also understand, as Christians who really appreciate what God says in the Bible, that laws are not and ought not be built on the Bible, but on common sense, which God gives to human beings even as he creates and designs us. With wisdom and common sense and understanding the impact that such a loss and separation and even death occurs, there always is, and even biblically, statements that God clearly makes. Whoever sheds human blood, by human blood that should be shed. So we understand and fully support, even from a biblical standpoint, not making laws based on the Bible, that it is good common sense and wise that there is just punishment for that kind of a violation. And so I thank you, Your Honor, for this opportunity to make such an impact statement. And I wish you God's blessings in your role. It is not easy to sit where you are and to make decisions you make, but we want to be as supportive as we can for the goodness of God in providing for us a government system and authorities that we respect and honor who carry out their roles, which are not easy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next would be Adam.
Good afternoon, sir. Could you tell me your name for the record, please, and spell it for my court reporter?
My name is Adam Glodowski, Glodowski.
And what is your relationship to Mr. Pastor Strong, please?
He's been a dear friend of mine since 1996.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. My friend Aaron. Aaron was a faithful friend, a father, a husband, and a pastor. He brought joy to so many people throughout his time on earth. He would listen to you with his half grin and smile and make you feel heard. He would share God's word with anyone who would listen. He turned 40 in August. I was there to celebrate with him, and it never occurred to me that it would be the last time I would get to talk to him, hear his laugh, and listen to his stories. Death is always hard, but my friend didn't just die, he was killed. A selfish, thoughtless, and careless act on the morning of October 12th, 2022 ended Aaron's life. He was taken from his family, from his friends, and from his congregation. And Aaron made an impact on the lives of all of these people with the potential to impact their lives for decades to come. What will we all miss? His friends will miss his laugh. Aaron was always ready to laugh. He was always ready to sit and talk about the hard things too. That's what made him such a great friend. In a way, he was our pastor too, and I will never get his counsel and advice again. I will miss that. His congregation will miss his service. He shared God's word with them in his sermons and in his private conversations. They will miss his laugh too, his counsel and his wisdom. They'll never hear God's word from Aaron again. They will miss that. His family, where to begin? His family will miss Dad. His daughter will go through high school and life without her dad. His laugh, his guidance, his perspective. She will miss advice on what guys to date or what guys to stay away from. She will miss advice on buying her first car. She'll miss Aaron's speech at her wedding. And Aaron gave a great speech at my wedding as my best man. She will miss Dad. His son will go through life without his father to talk to get advice on talking to girls. Aaron was great at that. To get help working on his house, Aaron was great at that too. He'll miss getting help fixing up his car. I'm not sure if Aaron was great at that or not, but that guy could do anything. His wife, she will miss financial support for sure. Aaron had years of earning power left, but she will miss her partner, her companion. She will miss her husband. I've thought long about what Aaron would say if he could speak now. I've thought about what he would want me to say on his behalf. And I think Aaron would want me to make it clear that God has worked amazing things through this horrible tragedy. The hundreds of people who attended Aaron's funeral, the hundreds of people who attended Aaron's funeral, along with the hundreds who watched online, heard God's word proclaimed. The pastors who were interviewed about Aaron were able to share Jesus and the gospel with whoever watched that news report. Aaron's friends were able to remind each other that God will work through this too. His wife reminded us of that. The young man who killed Aaron needs to hear that message too. The message Aaron would want him to hear. Jesus died for this sin too. Aaron would want me to say that. However, this was still a crime. Aaron didn't just die, he was killed, he was taken. And while there is forgiveness for this young man in heaven, there must be earthly consequences. This crime deserves to be punished. Actions have consequences. The selfish, thoughtless, and careless actions on the morning of October 12th have had innumerable consequences on Aaron's family and friends and congregation. There must also be consequences for the man who set that horrible day in motion. Aaron was taken, and nothing can bring him back. My friend Aaron was a faithful friend, father, husband, and pastor, and now he's a saint triumphant. I can't wait to see him again in heaven. We're going to have the best class reunion ever. I think Aaron would want me to say that too. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much.
Lastly, Abby, the wife of the victim.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Strong. Can you state your full name and spell it for the record, please?
Abby Strong, ABBIESTRONG.
Just one moment. I'm going to let the door close first, okay? Thank you. The victim advocate is providing me with a family picture of Aaron Strong with his wife and his 2 children, and I have seen that. Thank you very much for sharing that with me. Please go ahead with your words, ma'am.
I have thought a lot about what I would say today in this situation, Judge. I've lost sleep, written and rewritten these words many times. I've prayed for the right words to say, to express my feelings and thoughts honestly, and to also walk as a child of God. I'm here to be the voice of my husband. Jose's selfish, reckless, and unnecessary actions on October 12th caused the death of my husband, Aaron Strong. He alone is responsible for this, and that is why I sit before you here today. Because of Jose, I received a call while teaching kindergarten telling me to rush to the hospital, only to be greeted by a doctor telling me that my husband had died in an automobile accident even after they had used all extreme measures to save him. Because of Jose, I needed to pull my children out of school that day and destroy their worlds by telling them their dad was dead and that he wouldn't be coming home anymore. I had to watch them kick, scream, cry, and go numb. They will never be the same kids again. Because of Jose, I needed to call my family members and listen to them shriek, cry, and grow silent when I told them their son, grandson, or brother was dead. Because of Jose, a soccer team no longer has its coach to mentor them. Because of Jose, a congregation no longer has a pastor in the pulpit on Sunday morning or greets them with a genuine smile on his face at the front of the church steps. Because of Jose, I needed to pick out a casket and a burial plot and plan a funeral service for my 40-year-old husband. Because of Jose, I have had to learn how to maintain a home, take over family finances, and ask people to help with house projects that Aaron was forced to leave unfinished. Because of Jose, I now have to become a single parent to 2 amazing kids. My son will never get to have his dad go on more camping trips, play rounds of golf with him, or hear his dad cheering him on at his basketball games. My daughter will never have her dad meet her first boyfriend, see her graduate, or walk her down the aisle on her wedding day. Our weekly activities now include going to a therapist to help us process our feelings and this trauma. Because of Jose, I can't proceed through an intersection when the light turns green without scanning to see if a reckless driver is running a red light. Because of Jose, I can't drive on Wells Street, and I cringe when I see the street sign for 10th Street. I don't know how long it will take for me to be able to drive through the intersection where he hit Aaron. Because of Jose, I can't count the number of tears that have soaked my husband's pillow as I hug it with my head throbbing and my headache building. Because of Jose, I don't get to grow old with the man I promised to spend the rest of my life with. But Judge, the story does not end there. Because of Jose, I have taken up the cause of advocating for victims of reckless driving. I never want another family to feel this kind of pain. Because of Jose, I have pleaded with lawmakers in Madison to increase fines and prison time in the impounding of vehicles of reckless drivers like Jose. Aaron's death is proving to not be in vain. Instead, it serves a greater purpose, one that is going to protect other families from reckless drivers. And now it is time for the next chapter in both of Jose's and my story. For Jose, it's confinement in prison. For me, it will be vacations, holidays, birthdays, and celebrations without the head of our family, my partner, and the father to my children. And after some time, Jose will get to rejoin his family and friends and return to happier times. But for my family, life changed forever on October 12th, 2022. Today's sentence will change the outlook of Jose's life. But for me, life does not change. I'm still a widow and a single mom trying my best to put life back together for her kids and herself. I'm still living without my husband, and my kids still don't have their dad around. This experience is not going to break me or my kids. Instead, we are using this pain for a bigger purpose. We are using this experience to show God's strength in our weakest moments. We are not grieving as the world grieves. We know that this unplanned goodbye is temporary. We know that we will be reunited in the mansions of heaven with Aaron. We understand that this was part of God's plan, and we trust that He will continue to guide us in the days to come. God will never leave us or forsake us. He will hold us fast. Because of Jose, I've become braver, stronger, and more resilient. Not because I wanted to, but because he forced me into this situation. I'm not going to let this incident ruin and destroy my life. I will not hold on to hatred, anger, and bitterness. I will not leave that as an example to my children, my family, and friends. It is not the legacy that I want to leave behind. Instead, I want to honor my husband's legacy of being a servant of God, always pointing people to the one who loves us unconditionally at all times. This incredible grace of God allows me to get out of bed every day, to complete my daily tasks, and to continue to live. My Savior's love for me leads me to shed thankful tears at the thought of my future reunion with my husband again in heaven. This is the same God that loves Jose and has forgiven him. Your Honor, when Jose made those decisions on October 12th, they brought about deadly consequences. These are the facts. Jose drove at over 70 miles per hour. Jose drove on the wrong side of the road. Jose ran through multiple red lights. Jose drank to an excess of nearly 2.5 times the legal limit and got behind the wheel of a vehicle. He used his vehicle as a weapon. He killed my husband. He alone is responsible. While I am thankful that Jose did not kill more people that day, and he could have, he killed my person, my best friend, my husband, my partner. While he is taking ownership of the horrible choices he made that day, the decisions were deadly. And now it is time for him to face the consequences of these deadly choices. Judge, the sentence you give today is temporary. The sentence that Jose inflicted on our family is permanent. I hope the time that Jose serves will help him grow as a person and learn to make more responsible and less selfish choices in the next chapter of his life. I hope he uses his time to reevaluate his priorities and to later make positive impacts on the world. I pray that he learns from this horrible experience and he can use this as motivation to leave the reckless behaviors in the past. I pray for God to go with him and comfort in this sentence. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. You can step back to the gallery, please. Would you like the family picture back? Thank you.
Your Honor, the state's recommendation in this case was for 10 to 12 years of initial confinement. We are leaving the extended supervision up to the court. As the court is well aware, when a court is attempting to consider the appropriate sentence in order to sentence a defendant, the court needs to take into consideration a number of different factors. The serious nature of the offense, the character of the defendant, the need to protect the public, the need to send a message to the public and to the defendant that this conduct will not be tolerated, the need to punish the defendant, and the need to rehabilitate the defendant. As the court is well aware that when we are in homicide court, it seems that almost on a daily basis we are dealing with absolute tragedies. I think this case stands out because of both parties that are involved here. I think it should go beyond saying that when one considers the victim as well as the defendant, we should not be here today. I think that that is absolutely what, especially when you watch the video that the defense, I know the court has, the defense has put together with the heartfelt ways in which the defendant is described, he shouldn't be here today. Unfortunately, he is. I think that there are a lot of factors that the court should could take into consideration, and the state did. I think first and foremost, we need to consider the defendant's criminal record. He has none. The only finding or the only prior even incident that I even have within our records is a 2021 ticket that I see in CCAP as well as within our inter-county query, where the defendant was fined for parking or standing where prohibited. It originally was a speeding ticket, but that was about it. And that's all we have. We don't have any other than cases in which he was a victim or a witness. Nothing upon which he has ever been arrested or referred to my office, in which, as far as I can find. And in fact, as the court is well aware, the defendant was picked for a jury. And this incident occurs while the defendant is on his way to jury duty. He was late. And in fact, this incident and this horrible tragedy occurred at an intersection that I believe every single person that works in this building probably travels through, either walks or drives or rides their bike through almost every single day. And unfortunately, it's not the first homicide or injury that has happened within the areas of this courthouse that I've prosecuted, on the freeway, on the roads around here. We are in homicide court, but as this court is well aware, traffic-related homicides are different than what we oftentimes see. The effects are the same. A family is devastated because of decisions made by individuals that result in a death. But it is not what we oftentimes see with the shootings or the stabbings or the related incidents that we see in which people are intending to hurt. In traffic cases, what we are oftentimes seeing is individuals that should have known that they could have hurt, but it is slightly different. This is also a little bit different, and well, actually not a little bit, a lot different, in that many of the cases in which we see people are fleeing from the police, or they're drag racing, or they're doing something else. This is a defendant who is on his way to jury duty. All of that being said, and as the court knows, I do need to, and it is my job and my duty and my ethical duty to inform the court of all the mitigating factors. And I want to make sure the court knows all of those. But there are also some aggravating factors that we do need to discuss. The defendant, on his way to jury duty, what we know from the blood that was obtained by the Milwaukee Police Department had the defendant's BAC of ethanol at 0.193. That is over double the legal allowable limit. His BAC was almost at a 0.2 while the defendant was on his way to jury duty. The defendant was late, and he drives basically down Wells through Marquette's campus. I do have a little bit of security video from several locations along the route that I would like to show the court.
Can we turn one of the TVs so that the gallery can see, please, Deputy? Thank you.
So the court can see from this, so the court can see on this TV, we're going to be kind of starting in the lower right-hand level. I'm going to increase it as we get a little bit bigger and closer so the court can see. It is going to be down Wells, and it shouldn't take me much more than a minute, and I'm going to kind of focus in on all of them here. In the distance, at the conclusion, the court will see the crash. It is not, it's a little bit further off in the distance, but I'll point out where we're talking about. What I want to start off with, Your Honor, is what you can see. This is a camera. These are all Marquette University cameras that we have here is on Avenues West, and this is at approximately 9:01 in the morning. And as the court is going to end up seeing, that's the defendant's vehicle going down Wells. Now, just so the court can just see a little bit, backing up a little bit and playing from that area, because all these cameras kind of catch up with each other, they hand off. This is an intersection. As you can see, it's going to be a red light. The defendant's vehicle is going to be driving towards us. He drives around a vehicle, goes through the red light, and drives right by a Marquette police squad. The next camera, which is going to be on O'Donnell, just showing so the court can see. And this is going to be heading towards the heart of Marquette's campus. One moment. And again, the defendant drove around a vehicle on the wrong side of the road. Now seeing the area of where we can see Sobelman's, you can see that Marquette police squad who makes the turn, and the defendant goes through that what appears, and in this intersection, honestly, it's a little harder to tell whether or not he was going at a green or a yellow. It's very clear that there's a transition happening there. So unlike the first one where he clearly went through a red after passing a vehicle, that one's a little less clear. Now just coming back just a little bit, we can see again from the Sobelman's area, just a little bit further east. In that case, we actually saw a vehicle goes through, and so from that, at this angle, it appears clearer that he is going through what appears to be a red light. Now, going to the next angle, staying on Wells. As the court can see, he went through the Marquette. This is kind of the heart of the campus, and in fact, an individual briefly seconds afterwards is walking through those grounds. Moving to the next camera, and Your Honor, I'm going to be giving this to your clerk so that there's a record of exactly what the court watched. These are all the videos that are on the Milestone X Protect Smart Client media package. Coming to kind of right before you end up kind of crossing that area and getting closer to where the courthouse is, playing from this, the defendant has a red light, again crosses into the wrong lane, goes through the red light. There's a vehicle that had passed just seconds later. And then, Your Honor, this is going to be honestly the best camera that captures the crash. What you're going to want to be looking for, Your Honor, is you're going to see this intersection going across the freeway, and then this intersection here, as the court I'm sure is well aware, is going to be where the impact occurs. If the court also looks, you can see that at this point, it appears to be the lights are going to be changing. I know one of the witnesses does reflect that the defendant goes through a red light. It is going to be very clear when one looks at the intersection where the impact occurs that the victim is just starting out of a green light. So he has had the red light, he gets the green light and begins to go into the intersection when the defendant goes through that red light. Thank you. Your Honor, those are the camera portions that we have. There is really only one other camera that actually captures any of this, and that would be the impact. And that's afterwards. And I don't necessarily feel we need to go into that because I know the court has read the criminal complaint and is well aware of the fact that what we are talking about here ends up being a crash that involves a total of 6 vehicles, 2 of which were in motion, 1 of which was driven by the victim who had the green light, and 1 of which was driven by the defendant. The defendant stays on scene. The defendant provides information and talks to the police officers. He admits to the police that he is hurrying, although he tells the officers that he believes he has a yellow traffic signal and that he believed he was driving close to the speed limit. He was not, as the criminal complaints clearly shows, he was driving in excess of that. The victim suffers severe injuries in the crash. He's transported to Freighter Hospital, and as a result of those multiple blunt force traumatic injuries, he dies. I will state that for myself, for the Milwaukee police officer that was in charge of this investigation, and I'm sure also for defense counsel, when the defendant's blood came back, it was a little bit of a shock. The officer had not smelled any odor of intoxicants or noticed any signs of impairment on him at the scene when he talked to him. None. We had originally charged this a certain way, and when the blood came back at its level, the resolution was made in this manner in which the defendant pled guilty and accepted responsibility and did not put the state through a trial. Honestly, the only reason I think this even took so long was we were waiting for the blood to come back and for us to have final testing of everything, so we knew exactly what we had in front of us. Those are the facts. The state's recommendation is based upon those facts. Oftentimes, when we are dealing with traffic homicides, we are dealing with individuals that are making horrible decisions. And in this case, the defendant made one horrible decision, unfortunately, after another. I know that it was said, I believe that we are thankful and lucky that more people were not hurt. We are. The defendant drove through at least 3 red lights. He passed cars on the wrong side of the road. He drove through at least 1 red light on the wrong side of the road. He drove past a squad car. And then he ended up changing the lives of every single person in this courtroom. All of these people that are here for the victim, all of these great people that are here for the defendant, all of them, their lives are fundamentally changed because of the defendant's actions that day. Unfortunately, we are going to be left in a situation where the victims' families, all they are left with are memories that will always be tainted with the fact that he was killed. And for the defendant's family, their memories will always, unfortunately, even the happy ones, end with, yes, and he had to go to prison because at a .19, he drove through 4 red lights and unfortunately killed someone. I don't know if where I either heard this from or where this was, but when watching the video, and I believe it was the defendant's sister talking about how she was on campus that day, and that I believe she even stated she realized it could have been her. This was the heart of the campus, this is the heart of the city, and the defendant is disregarding red lights and the side of the road. And even though I know his intention was just to make it there for jury duty, I think the video places this into a context of with that BAC at that high level. It's not just one thing. It's not just the speed or it's not just the one light. It's all of these things together. That ending with, unfortunately, him ruining his own life and him ending the life of the victim. He ended that life. As the court knows, we need to take into account all the mitigating and aggravating factors. The law requires the court to sentence the defendant to the minimum amount necessary to accomplish its goals. And I believe our recommendation is that minimum amount. I think when one considers and takes into account, yes, every good thing that is on that video that you read from the defendant's family, and I believe every single one of them, when you take all of those things in and you put it with what we see in the video and what we see from the blood and what he unfortunately did over and over again that day, I think our recommendation is appropriate, and I would ask that you follow it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Attorney Adams.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before I make my argument,
Miss Wade, if you'd have a seat and put the microphone toward you. Get situated, and then if you would state your full name for the record and spell it, please.
Margie Wade, Margie Wade.
And you are Mr. Silva's sister, is that correct?
His oldest sister, yes.
Thank you. Please go ahead with your statement.
Your Honor, thank you for allowing me to speak briefly today about my little brother, Jose. Jose has fought through a hard life, and despite it all, remained a positive, loving person. His hardships were largely at the hands of his father, who was a longtime alcoholic and drug addict. During high school, his father's addictions forced Jose to deal with issues only adults should deal with, and help his mom take care of his 2 younger sisters, and be the grown man of their household. This was when Jose himself, still a child, going to school. We learned recently that Jose has been dealing with the issues that started with him dealing with his father's problems, ironically in the worst way possible, by following his father's footsteps into alcohol addiction. It was this addiction, the drinking to numb himself from thoughts in his head, that led to his driving drunk last year and the tragedy that brings us all together today. We are sorry it took this tragedy to learn about our brother's issues. The rehabilitation and counseling Jose did since the accident has made an impact on him. I know from our conversation, it is as if a weight has been lifted from him. My family understands my brother's actions have caused this tragedy. Jose is aware of the hurt and pain he has caused and has told us he would do anything to take it back. We know he thinks about it all the time. I know that Jose is generally remorseful. On behalf of my entire family, we apologize to Aaron's family. This horrible tragedy has destroyed both our families. We are sorry and hope one day forgiveness is possible. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Wade. We appreciate you. The other sister's name is Natalie, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Could you tell me your name and spell it for the record as well, please?
Hello, Your Honor. My name is Natalie Mazak. That's Natalie. Last name is Mizysak.
And you are Mr. Silva's sister as well?
Correct. I'm his second oldest sister.
What would you like to say, Ms. Mazak?
I have known Jose M. Silva for 23 years of his life, from Christmas Day, 1999, when he was born. I was there, as I am his second eldest sister. Jose is the third from youngest of 8 siblings. While we are 14 years apart, I have remained active in his life since birth. As a young child and a young adult, Jose has always been well-behaved and considerate of others. He always showed compassion and concern for family, friends, and strangers alike. He is an active uncle to his nieces and nephews and a supportive brother. Jose grew up with a lot of responsibility at a young age and took on the head of the household role when he was in our mother's home at the age of 15 to 16 years of age. When us older siblings were out of the house and his father started having many of the issues you have heard previously. Jose worked so hard to ensure that he was successful in school, in sports, and friendships, all while working jobs to contribute financially to his family. He finished post-high school education to obtain his certificate as a power engineer, boiler operator with MATC, and went on to obtain a great job at MPS. Jose is an open-hearted person. Jose literally saved one of his friends from committing suicide by spending an extraordinary time talking with him and showing him he was special and valued. He is quiet by nature, but available to his friends and family when they are in need. Jose has been baptized and filled with the Holy Spirit, and he will speak up to help someone else in need. It is this gift that has followed Jose throughout life and provided guidance and support to those around him, even when in times when Jose may not have understood the message, but delivered it with faith. I am so sad that he did not turn this attention onto himself when he was suffering. I think this whole tragedy could have been avoided if he had a friend that he trusted the same way others have trusted him. I understand the circumstances around Jose's actions, which lead us here today, and our two families are forever changed. No words that we can convey can lessen the pain of losing Mr. Strong. The event also forever changed Jose's life. And I pray that together as families and believers in Christ, we can work together towards forgiveness and release the heaviness we all feel from the fateful day onto God. Jose and our family have all made our prayers known to God and stand on belief according to his word. Matthew 6:14. For if you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father, I will also forgive you. That my brother can work towards forgiveness in the natural world. Our family also asks the Strong family for forgiveness, as we deeply want to extend our condolences to you for the impact of loss my family has caused. I hope these letters you received can convey even a glimpse of how impactful Jose has been to those around him prior to this. If Jose is given a chance to rejoin us sooner, I know he will not find himself in this situation again. He has an extensive support system out here through family, friends, and community leaders that have stepped up to rally around Jose and will ensure that he has the support to continue on a positive path. We will do this by ensuring Jose continues with therapy and remains an active member in the community. Thank you for taking the time to read these letters and hearing us out.
Thank you very much. Attorney Adams?
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, the sisters have conveyed something I would like to convey on behalf of the rest of the people who have shown up for Mr. Silva today, which is the deepest sympathy to the Strong family, to the Grace Lutheran congregation and the community. Throughout this entire controversy, my client and his family have been just beside themselves with grief for the Strongs, and they wanted me to convey that on their behalf, and their genuine empathy and compassion, especially for Mrs. Strong and her 2 children. We recognize that words are sometimes only worth what we pay for them. Words are cheap. But my client has done everything that he can do since this accident to follow up his words of contrition and sorrow with action. He pled guilty in this case 16 weeks after it happened. I think he would have done that sooner, and I agree with the prosecutor if that blood work had been instantaneous. He didn't play games with litigation. He didn't file any 1% chance motions. He didn't ask me to drag this out. He wanted a quick resolution, and he's gotten one. I think that speaks to his character. I think that speaks to him looking outward into the community and trying to get himself to a place where he can show true contrition and remorse. And I have to say, this is a very difficult case for everyone in this room. I think this has been a very difficult case for my colleagues, for probably your colleagues, as courthouse people. I think everyone in this room recalls when they heard about what had happened outside of our courthouse. And I feel privileged to have struggled with this case, and I will tell the court why. After I read the news, and I was in my kitchen, I read the news of a fatal accident outside of our courthouse. I got very mad. I think everyone in this community who reads the drumbeat of news coming out of the different broadcast areas gets mad when they hear about things. And I remember thinking, without any other knowledge, well, here we go. Here's a Kia boy. Here's a drug dealer. Here's a career miscreant. Here's somebody running from the cops, stolen car, and they have now done it in my neighborhood, which is how I feel about this courthouse. And I felt myself sneering at what had happened. And I felt a darkness in my heart. And the strength of this reaction didn't mellow like it usually does when the news started to slip out about what had happened. We had a 40-year-old person with 2 kids who just dropped them off, was commuting downtown. I happen to be a 40-year-old with 2 kids who drops them off and commutes downtown. This was very personal in the initial, well, not just the initial, the entirety of this case, because it seemed like there was an assault on my neighborhood by an outsider. And I have to say, I'm blessed to have had those prejudices, those assumptions, those initial reactions completely destroyed by my interactions with Jose and his family. Aaron Strong was our neighbor, but through working on this case, I've learned that Jose Silva is our neighbor. And he's a good neighbor. Many times, I've worked with Mr. Hubner on many cases. I've been in front of Your Honor on many cases. I think it's a product of the criminal courts that sometimes we are all dealing with people who objectively have lived criminal lives. They are repeat people. There are people who are making poor decisions regularly, who are abusing others, who have decided to live as outlaws. My client, Jose, is not one of those people. And I'd like to say that that makes this case easier. It certainly has been lifted my heart up in a way, but it actually makes it harder to deal with. We know he's a good man. At his bail hearing in October, I was flummoxed when I left the bail hearing, which had happened actually before it was scheduled, about 5 minutes before it was scheduled. And there were 35 people in the hallway in the CJF who had all been trying to get through security to support him in his bail hearing. 35 people. The simple volume of people who are here today, the people who were at his plea hearing, I think there was 25 supporters at his plea hearing. The pure volume of people who will stand up physically, take time off to say, this is a good man and I'm here to support him, is amazing. But not just the volume, the quality of these people has been incredibly heartening. In working on this case and providing the video of his sisters and his several friends to Your Honor, I was able to speak with them at length about Jose. They are so genuinely effusive about what a wonderful person he is. It's unlike anything I've seen in the criminal courts. He has the volume of people who are willing to stand up for him, but also the quality of what they say is unbelievable. And I don't think that it is trite to say, although it's often quoted, that you can tell somebody's character by who he surrounds himself with. And he has surrounded himself with amazing young professionals, people he went to Reagan High School with, his amazing collection of sisters, who are all getting into the community and doing tremendous things. Despite them coming from a very working class, hard scrabble life, they've all taken off. Someone once said, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Jose had a bright future until October. We knew he was going to continue to be a weaver of the fabric of this community in a positive way. There are, I think I submitted 20 letters to Your Honor. I could go through them, but I know Your Honor has read them. The pure effusive positivity of these letters. I mean, we were talking about someone who always is the guy to pick up at the party, always willing to volunteer at the local Halloween or Christmas time celebration. Not because he needed extra credit for school or anything, only because he was asked, he knew about an opportunity to rise other people up. We know that he lifted his little sisters up, and at a time when his family was having incredible hardship through no fault of his own, he filled the gap like a teenager should never have to do, but we know in a working class family, sometimes this happens. And he didn't bear a grudge. He never complained about it. He knew his mom needed help. He knew his little sisters needed help. And because of the help that he did, those little sisters have become amazing women. And Elisa is here. His other sister, Aaliyah, is serving our country in the National Guard. Those little sisters wouldn't be doing that. Annalisa, again, is the Marquette Scholar. They wouldn't be there without my client's help as a teenager. He was a good student. He went to Reagan, which is a marvelous school, graduated in the top half. He took an ACT. He was in the top quarter and top 20% of ACT takers, statewide of all ACT takers. He was an athlete until that kind of petered out because he needed to work at a restaurant to help pay the bills. So this creates this situation of true cognitive dissonance for me, and I'm sure Your Honor, of how do we bring justice to one of our neighbors for the injustice that's been inflicted on him and his family, but how do we ensure another injustice is not inflicted today against another one of our neighbors. And this is harder, this dissidence again, because he is a good person and because he too subscribes to a Christian outlook and ethic, because his family was raised in the church. There is a contrast, there's a tension here between what justice needs to be meted out and what mercy my client deserves. And we know in the criminal courts that the tool of justice, the only tools that Your Honor has been granted, are incredibly blunt. It is not a surgical procedure. It is the meting out of prison, banishment. It is the taking out from our society our neighbor and putting him elsewhere, labeling him the other, making him a convict. And the question is, of course, how long? We know that he'll return. We know he will have these wonderful sisters be waiting his return no matter how long it takes. But 10 years is too long. 10 years is not a temporary situation. 10 years in the Wisconsin state prison system has a destructive permanence on someone's outlook, their character, the rest of their life. The prosecutor said that he destroyed his life. He did. Whether it's 5 years or 10 years. Anyone who thinks 5 years is a pittance, I would say try it. I think most people would not last 24 hours subject to being told where you can eat, where you sleep, who you sleep with in the dorms. 24 hours of your life subject to government control. And we know because of truth in sentencing, whatever Your Honor decides today is what Jose is going to serve. Even if everyone in this courtroom had a change of heart, that would not be grounds for a sentencing modification. And we know that other Milwaukee trial courts have taken up the issue of OWI homicides. I've included 4 of those cases that I think are representative. I included another homicide by vehicle for contrast. I don't believe that, I do believe that outcomes matter. In some of those cases, multiple people, 2 victims that were killed. In the non-OWI matter, the outcome, meaning a beloved member of the Milwaukee community was killed. Regarding the nature of Jose's driving, I think morally, from a moral culpability situation, it is different than those other 4 cases that I highlighted. He wasn't partying. He wasn't out in the tavern. He didn't drive somewhere thinking that, oh, I'll figure out how I get home when I'm drunk. He wasn't at a baseball game all day drinking. He had served jury duty. He had gone home where he was alone, and he had drank in excess. He woke up still intoxicated. There's no excuse for getting that drunk. I know Your Honor has studied and has had extreme experience with dealing with alcoholics, and this is a disease that we still can't understand. Why someone by themselves with nothing to do at home would get so drunk. All I can say is that when he woke up and he realized he had this civic obligation, given what we know from his character letters, he is a reliable person. His self-narrative is, I am the guy who always does what is needed. And so rather than think, oh boy, I am so drunk from last night, I probably should call Uber or call the courthouse and say I'm sick, he rushed to his car. And as we know with drunken behavior, people get tunnel vision on what they're gonna do. And I think that that is what happened here. He knew where he had to go, and he had the tunnel vision to get there. He knew his obligation. He didn't want to let anyone down. The prosecutor mentions, and I know Your Honor saw the video with this little sister, which is the most impactful part of that video, talking about herself being parked at the Wells Street parking structure on Marquette's campus, and how this was personal to her. Some people would think that that is an aggravating factor. I do not. My client wasn't an outsider trying to hurt another community. My client was trying to get to his community obligation, going through his entire community. My client loves his sister Annalisa like no one else. They are not just siblings, they are best friends. And if he had the wherewithal to think for a second, oh my goodness, I am driving like this where my little sister might be also driving, or her friends who I love are also driving. He wouldn't have done that, but he didn't have that wherewithal at the time. There is this contrasting tension between mercy and justice, and we're not asking for leniency. I think mercy and leniency are different things. I think leniency is, hey, we know you did it, but we're going to cut you a break. We're not asking for any breaks. What we're asking for is mercy in light of my client's character. That we know that this community, the fabric of this community, which has had an amazing tear in it, a terrible, tragic tear in this community. We know that as a weaver himself, this community will be better off if he is not coming out a 10-year convict. We know that if he can do the minimum amount of time, which is still 5 long years, that he will be woven back into this community, that the destruction will be built back up, that the negatives can start to be repaired. We know that there's a hole in the fabric that will never quite be sewn together. But it's our belief that 5 years is the proper sentence in this case. I think there's we could look to the New Testament regarding forgiveness and mercy, but this is a secular court. And I think that given the analysis, the Gallian factors, which have emphasis on the unique characteristics of a defendant, he is different. He is better. He is net positive. So, Your Honor, we're making a very specific sentencing recommendation, and I would urge Your Honor to follow it. And I know my client wants to address the court.
Thank you. Mr. Silva, it's your opportunity to make a statement if you wish to do so. Could you please pull the microphone toward you? Good afternoon, sir. Go ahead.
I've hoped and prayed many times, for many days, to wake up and things to be different. That I could take it all back and go back to that day. But I know I can't. This is reality, and I made a terrible decision that day. A decision that hurt so many and changed many lives. Took a life, something I never thought I'd be saying. I know there are no words that could help with the sorrow I've caused. I regret what I did that day, and am truly sorry to Aaron's strong family and friends and the community he was a part of, and to anyone else my actions that day affected. I pray that you can all someday find peace or some sense of normality again, and be able to carry on. One day I hope to be able to forgive myself. I know I'll never forget it, but I hope to someday find a way to make amends with God and those I've hurt in the community. I've always hated hurting people in any shape or form. It's one of the things I sit and ruminate about. All the pain I've caused with this never seems to leave my mind. The lives I've changed that will never be the same. I pray for them often, hoping if any of my prayers are still listened to, that it is the ones for them, their lives, their futures, and their peace. I was irresponsible and reckless that day, and truly regret my actions. I apologize and will do better moving forward, hopefully finding a way to be even half the man I'm sure Aaron Strong was, to the community and those around him. I pray you can all find a way to carry on and hopefully one day believe and feel the sincerity of my apology. It feels like I'm asking for too much if I ask to someday be forgiven. The weight of it all already is so heavy, I can only imagine how all of you involved feel. So don't worry about forgiveness. I ask just carry on for him and those you love around you. I'll forever be on a path trying to right my wrongs and make up for what I've done. That is all, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right. At the time of sentencing in this case, the court must look at the gravity of the offense that was committed. I have to look at the character and rehabilitative needs of Mr. Silva, as well as protection of the community and deterrence, both individually as well as generally. This is one of those cases that is so difficult because we sit here with a gallery full of wonderful people who support both sides. Both Aaron Strong's family and his congregants and his friends are here, as well as Mr. Silva's family, friends, and supporters. But I have to look at what happened on the day in question. And we talk about this case, and I've heard the word accident bantered around a bit, but this is still a homicide because of the fact that Aaron Strong died on Wednesday, October 12th, 2022, as the result of the actions of Mr. Silva. On that date, about 9:15 in the morning, I believe it was a Wednesday morning, police officers get dispatched out to 10th and Wells outside this courthouse. In fact, at the southwestern corner of the courthouse complex. There's a motor vehicle collision where a crash is. There are 6 vehicles that are involved in this particular incident. 2 of the vehicles were in motion, 4 of them were vehicles that were parked, that because of the 2 vehicles that were impacted during the crash, they were shoved into the parked vehicles. Mr. Jose Silva was on his way to the courthouse, and Mr. Aaron Strong, the pastor, was on his way after having dropped off his children to his work at Grace Lutheran Church. Mr. Silva had been selected to serve as a juror in a domestic violence case. The day before, after his jury service, he had gone home. From the things that were written in the sentencing memorandum, I learned that he had worked out at the gym, he'd gone and got himself something to eat, came home, played some video games, and drank himself to excess. He woke up the next morning about 8 o'clock and realized, oh my goodness, I need to be at the courthouse. I'm going to be late. But he was impaired. And the camera views that we saw today of the video that was caught on the Marquette University security videos tell the story of what happened in this case. Mr. Silva is seen driving on West Wall Street. He's speeding. He's going at a high rate of speed, in excess certainly of whatever the posted limit was on Wall Street. He's driving the wrong way on the street. You see him do that a couple of times, actually. He fails to stop. Mr. Silva, I'm a graduate of Marquette University, so I know that area, and it's clear to me you failed to stop at 17th and Wells. You failed to stop at 16th and Wells. You didn't stop at 12th and Wells, and you most certainly did not stop at 11th and Wells. You, at the time that you were driving, had a .193 BAC. That is nearly 2.5 times the legal limit of .08 in the state of Wisconsin. And ultimately, you are involved in this homicide at the intersection of 10th and Wells, a place that is constantly occupied by people, jurors coming in and out of the courthouse, lawyers, litigants, just passerbyers, people who are going through the neighborhood, students like your sister going to Marquette University, walking on the avenue, walking on Wells Street. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. And ultimately, unfortunately, your actions lead to the demise and the traumatic injuries that resulted in the death of Pastor Aaron Strong. Further, it ended up where there were 4 other cars that were hit, that were parked in that location. And I know that there was also a mistrial caused in the domestic abuse case, wherein the other court that was waiting for you to do your civic duty and to come in a sober manner to serve as a juror was. The speed of the vehicle, the high BAC, the driving behavior in the wrong way on the street, failing to stop, these are aggravating factors. And one of the other things that I found interesting in the criminal complaint was that apparently the black box was located in the Toyota vehicle that you were driving. 3.5 seconds prior to the impact, you were driving 74 miles per hour on Wells Street. 2 seconds before that, you apparently had applied the brakes, but you were going 72 miles per hour. A half a second prior to the impact, you were still trying to brake. The vehicle was still going 65 miles per hour. And the last recorded data point showed that when the airbags deployed, the vehicle was traveling 56 miles per hour. Wells Street is a 30-mile-per-hour zone. I can't even imagine the pain that was felt by the pastor when his vehicle was impacted. I want to talk for a minute about the letters that were sent in, the victim impact statements that were given to me. One of the writers, and it struck me because she's young and she was very articulate, was Pastor Strong's daughter, Hannah. She said, October 12th, 2022 was the worst day of my life. That was the last day that I told my dad I loved him and I heard it in return. That was the last day I heard my dad tell me he was proud of me. That day, I not only lost my dad, but I lost one of the most influential people in my life. Aaron's father said he was heartbroken, but there are consequences. Pastor Strong's sister said, please prevent this from ever happening again. His sister-in-law said that we're all grieving, but we're still growing, and we are grateful and we are thankful despite our circumstances. At the same time, though, we believe in justice and that it was a selfish decision for you, Mr. Silva, to get behind the wheel of a car in such an impaired state and drive so recklessly. There are multiple letters from relatives. There are also congregants who talked about the fact that they have struggled with the loss of their pastor. They talked about the leadership role that he played in the institution of their church. They talked about the fact that he was there not only as their religious leader, but also as a friend, and he made their community significant. They talked about the anger that they have because a son won't have his father, a daughter won't have her father, a wife has lost her best friend and companion. An entire family is now without a son, a brother, an uncle, a grandson, a cousin. Sports teams have lost their coach in Pastor Strong, and the pastor, with whom many people here felt very connected, have lost their spiritual leader. It's really unfortunate because no sentence, no apology, nothing at all is going to make up for the loss that was caused by the death of Aaron Strong to these people. He was significant, and I just want to recognize that for a minute, the impact that he had not only on his friends and family, but on the greater community. But I also, when sentencing Mr. Silva, have to look at Mr. Silva's character and his rehabilitative needs. I watched with interest the video a couple of times that was provided to me, and I know that the people in the gallery haven't seen it, but Mr. Silva's family members talked about how valued and how loved that he is as well. They talked about how he supported them when his mother was in need and his father was no longer in the household because of addiction, because of alcoholism, that Mr. Silva dropped everything to pay the bills and still maintained this 3.5 GPA at Reagan High School, which is not insignificant. He became a father figure to his younger sisters. He was a provider and a supporter to them. Mr. Silva appears to be a religious person who's asking for renewal and redemption based upon his statements here in court today, and he does have a heart. I think that he has been helpful. That's what his mother says. He has worked all of his life, his very young life, and one of the most touching stories that I thought was, Attorney Adams talked about this sort of, but in one of the letters, your little sister wrote about how you, Mr. Silva, and she used to work at COPS together. You worked together, and that the manager liked to put the two of you together because you were hardworking, industrious, and did your jobs. But you also enjoyed each other's company, and there was a close-knit bond. And that's what I sensed from the video, as well as the letters of support that were submitted on behalf of Mr. Silva. These are good things. These are good characteristics, Mr. Silva, and I hope that you don't lose that optimism and that hope in your life, because I think that that is really positive. It is positive that on the day of this homicide that you stayed on scene. It's positive that you talked to police. It's positive that you were serving as a juror. It's positive that you are a good son and that you are a good brother and supporter. You, again, I mentioned, have a high school diploma. You attended MATC, and at a very young age got a very responsible job at MPS, working as a boiler operator. And those are all really good things. And the biggest thing that I think that you deserve credit for in this case is the acceptance of responsibility. Your lawyer indicated that it's only been 16 weeks from the time of the incident occurring to the date of the guilty plea in this case. And that is significant to me because there weren't any frivolous motions filed, there weren't any last-ditch efforts. It was a matter of you learned of the fact that your blood alcohol content was a 0.193, and you said, I'm going to be responsible for what I've done. That's my only option. And those are really good things. The other piece of this that is extremely positive is that you have no prior criminal history. The only thing that the parties have mentioned is a 2021 speeding ticket that was reduced upon you showing up in court. I see here in this courtroom and from the submissions that I've reviewed, two families in grief. Regardless of what I do here with Mr. Silva, this is not going to bring back Aaron Strong. It's not going to take away from you, Mr. Silva, the fact that you have to live with your actions in this case. And they were reckless, and they were homicide. The decision that I have to make in this case is not an easy one, but it also bears in mind the great impact that this particular case has had on the community as a whole. And I have to send a message of deterrence to people that reckless driving, drunken driving, homicides will not be tolerated by our court system. There are new laws in place recently that were enacted considering reckless driving. And those laws aren't made by me, but they're laws that I have to consider. And what I have to look at here in this court today is what is the penalty that I need to give to Mr. Silva in order to recognize the worth of the life of Aaron Strong, to punish you, Mr. Silva, and you will come out of prison. That is a guarantee. You are a very young man at age 23. But in order to deter you from further acts of criminality, in order to send a message to the community that this behavior is not acceptable and that it impacts all of us here in the Milwaukee community, in our state, and in our court community as well, the sentence of the court is going to be as follows. As to count 1, homicide by intoxicated use of a motor vehicle with a prohibited alcohol concentration, the sentence of the court will be 18 years. The initial term of confinement in this case will be 12 years, followed up by 6 years on extended supervision. Mr. Silva, the time that you are confined in prison can be extended if you violate any prison regulation or if you refuse or neglect to perform any required or assigned duties. If your time in prison is extended under this bad time provision, you could be required to serve up to the total length of your sentence. The penalties that can be imposed by the Department of Corrections are 10 days for the first offense, 20 days for the second offense, and 40 days for the third and each subsequent offense. In addition, if you are placed in adjustment, program, or controlled segregation status, your term of confinement can be extended by a number of days equal to 50% of the number of days that you spend in adjustment, program, or controlled segregation status. Finally, if while you are in prison, you file a lawsuit, which the court finds to be filed for a malicious purpose or solely to harass the party against whom it is filed, or if you testify falsely or otherwise knowingly offer false evidence or provide false information to the court in that lawsuit, the court can order that your term of confinement be extended up to the total length of your sentence. While you are on extended supervision, you will be subject to certain conditions that I will tell you about in a moment. If you violate any of these terms or conditions, you may be returned to prison to serve not more than the time remaining on your sentence. The time remaining on your sentence is the total length of your sentence, less any time served in custody. You are not eligible for the Challenge Incarceration Program boot camp, and you are not eligible for the substance abuse program. Sir, you will receive a copy of this written explanation of the determinate sentence form so you know exactly what the sentence is in this case. But before I give you that, I need to explain the conditions of your extended supervision. Upon your release after serving the initial term of confinement, on extended supervision, the following conditions will apply. First and foremost, you are to have no new law violations rising to the level of probable cause. That means you have to stay out of trouble. Secondly, you need to cooperate with your agent, keeping all office visits and home visits at the direction of your agent. Your agent is there to help you carry out the court's orders. Those include the following. I want you to undergo and complete an alcohol or drug assessment and comply with all recommended treatment and care. You must also do that as a condition to try and reinstate your driver's operating privileges. You must maintain absolute sobriety and submit to preliminary breath test and random urine screens at the direction of your agent to ensure that you are absolutely sober. Further, sir, you are to have no contact with the family of Aaron Strong or Grace Lutheran Church. I'm also ordering that upon your release, you obtain and maintain employment, schooling, or a combination thereof. I find you to be exceptionally intelligent, and I hope that while you're in the institution that you will continue to learn and educate yourself, and I think that you will do well upon your release if you continue in that direction. You have a lot of potential, sir. You just have to continue to develop it as you grow and mature. You are to have absolutely positively no contact with firearms. You must pay supervision fees at the direction of the Department of Corrections. Further, sir, you must pay all court cost fees and assessments, including giving a sample of your DNA to the state crime lab and paying the DNA surcharge, as well as I'm going to order an ignition interlock device be placed on any vehicle that is registered to you or titled in your name. That IID must be in place for a period of 5 years after the confinement, the initial confinement in this case, is done. And you must pay for the installation of that device as well as any fees and any OWI surcharges that are ordered by the Department of Transportation. Restitution in this case shall be set in the amount of $806.55 to Abby Strong. In addition, sir, I'm ordering that your driver's operating privileges be revoked for a period of 5 years. And I'm ordering, sir, because of the impact of this particular case on the greater community, and I'm talking about the Grace Lutheran community, the city of Milwaukee, the courthouse community, the people that you have impacted in your life, I'm ordering that you serve community service as well. You must perform 100 hours of community service while you are on extended supervision. I don't think that's going to be a problem for you, but I want you to know that you, Mr. Silva, are valued, and I think that by giving back to other people, you will understand that what you give to others is appreciated, and I think that you will be glad for what you've done. I think it will be cathartic for you. Finally, you may not drive any vehicle unless you have a valid operator's license and proof of insurance. All right, Mr. Silva, while you're in the care, custody, and control of the DOC, they may collect any monetary amounts ordered today as provided in section 973.05 sub 4 sub B and 973.20 from your accounts while you're in their control. Any monetary amounts that remain unpaid when the defendant is released from confinement should be paid as a condition of his extended supervision. Any monetary amounts that remain unpaid when the sentence is completed are ordered reduced to a civil judgment against Mr. Silva for the unpaid balance, and then collection can proceed under section 71.935 of the statutes via tax intercept as well as through other civil collection means. The issue of restitution has been resolved. I will order that restitution be absolutely positively paid first in time, followed by the other court costs that are required. If there is any cash bill and deposit, which I believe there is, the restitution and the court costs shall be taken out of those funds before the balance is returned to the person who posted it. Does your client have any sentence credit, Attorney Adams?
Yes, he has 60 days.
60 days of pretrial incarceration credit shall apply against the initial term of confinement that's been given in this case. Mr. Silva, you have been convicted of a felony offense here in court today. Therefore, sir, you may never possess a firearm at any time in the future. Section 941.29 of the Wisconsin statutes makes it another felony for anyone who has been convicted of a felony to ever possess a firearm, carrying with it its own 10-year period of imprisonment or $25,000 fine or both. Do you understand, sir, that you can never have a firearm? In addition, sir, due to the nature of this felony conviction, you are prohibited from possessing body armor, ammunition, and explosives. Do you understand that? And finally, sir, you are not allowed to vote until your voting rights have been restored by the Wisconsin Department of Corrections once you are discharged from supervision in this case. Do you understand that? This is a case that leaves a terrible hole in all sorts of people's hearts. But I hope that this is a new beginning for everybody, a closure on a bad set of circumstances, and a look toward the future for those in the Strong family, as well as those who are part of the Silva family. This is a closure of this chapter, and I hope that at some point in time that there will be forgiveness and there will be understanding so that each family can move forward in a pro-social, positive manner. I think that that would be in the best honor of Aaron Strong And I think that that also would benefit our community as a whole. Homicide by intoxicated user is a terrible tragedy, and everybody has been impacted by this. But I think that today is a new day, and I hope that you will find peace with what I've done here. Mr. Silva, if you are dissatisfied with the sentence that the court has imposed today, you have 20 days to appeal my decision. Has the CR 233 form been filed with the court yet, Attorney Adams?
No, but it will be, Your Honor.
Sir, you have the right to the assistance of the Office of the State Public Defender in prosecuting any post-conviction motion and or appeal should you wish to do so. I'd also ask that if the voting rights form is not on file, that be completed as well. Are there any questions from the state as to the sentence imposed by the court in this case?
No.
Attorney Adams, do you have any questions, sir?
Would he be eligible for ERP or SAP?
He is not eligible statutorily for those programs because this is a conviction under Chapter 940 of the statutes. Mr. Silva, do you have any questions, sir?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Then I'd ask that the family of Aaron Strong and the supporters of Aaron Strong please vacate the courtroom at this point in time. We're going to be adjourned. In a moment, the folks that are here in support of Mr. Silva, if you just stay, I want everybody to leave peacefully, please. Thank you.